Hi, and welcome to Let's Bake and Cook Stuff. I'm Mary, and today I'm making a tres leches cake. I'm starting off with 1 1/4 cups of all-purpose flour, 2 teaspoons of baking powder, a 1/4 teaspoon of baking soda, and a 1/2 teaspoon of salt. And I just want to combine these with this whisk. Now we're going to start with our egg whites. I have 5 egg whites. You need 5 whole eggs for this cake, but we separated them. The yolks are here and the whites are here. We're going to beat these up till they get foamy, and then we're going to add some sugar. These look foamy to me, so now I'm going to add the sugar. This is 1/4 cup. You need 1 cup of sugar altogether, but we're adding 1/4 cup with these egg whites, and we're keeping 3/4 cup aside to add with the rest of the cake mix. So we're going to add this slowly as we're beating these egg whites. Stiff peaks. What that means is they're standing up. What I showed you a couple seconds ago, those were medium peaks. They were still kind of flopping over a little bit. Stiff peaks stand up. Now we're going to set these aside. I forgot to mention, whenever you're beating egg whites and you have to get them to a stiff peaks or any kind of peaks, you do want to make sure that your beaters are clean and your bowl is clean. Use a glass bowl or a metal bowl. You probably don't want to use plastic just because it can it's sort of porous, and then if there's any fat in there left over from popcorn you had yesterday or something, your egg whites won't get stiff. And I'll tell you how I know that is because I did get some fat. I had a little bit of tiny minuscule amount of egg yolk in some egg whites one time, and I just beat the heck out of it, and it will not beat to stiff peaks. You can still use it. It just won't be as fluffy. I wouldn't be mad at it, but you just want to make sure that you don't get any fat in there, and you want to make sure that when you're separating your eggs, you don't get any yolk in with your egg whites. Okay, here we go. I have 5 egg yolks because we just used the 5 whites, right? I have 3/4 cup of sugar. We're going to beat that up a couple seconds. We're going to go ahead and use the same one because the egg yolks don't matter as much as the whites as far as mixing that, okay? You want to beat this for about 2 minutes until it turns pale in color. Now I'm adding in 2 teaspoons of vanilla extract. Now we're going to incorporate the flour and the milk. Okay, so I'm going to put about 1/3 of this in here and beat that in. Now I'm going to add in about 1/2 of the milk, so about 1/2 cup. Again, this is buttermilk. Now I'm adding in 1/2 of what's left of the flour, which is the next 1/3. It's math. It's all about learning stuff, right? Second half, or the last 1/2 of the milk going in. Now the last of the flour. Scrape these sides down a little bit. I see a little of that flour sticking. Okay. Now I think I've mentioned this before. Whenever you're making a cake or adding flour into something, unless it's bread, if you're doing cake, cookies, cupcakes, muffins, once you've added the flour, you've made your commitment. Before you add the flour, you can beat it as long as you want. I mean, let's don't go crazy, but you can beat it for as long as you want. Once you add the flour though, if you don't want to put too much of that gluten in there and have a chewy cake, you want to stop mixing as soon as you can, as soon as the flour is completely incorporated in there, and that'll keep that gluten from being activated. Okay, now we're going to fold in. This is called folding. I fold differently than what you might see. I'm going to mix about 1/3 of the egg white mixture in first, and I'm just going to beat it in there, and that's going to lighten this up and make it more accepting of the rest of these egg whites so that it won't flatten it out. Okay, now we're going to add the rest of these egg whites and sugar mixture. While you're folding it is you don't want to deflate the egg. The actual way you're supposed to fold is to go under and then go around and then go under and then go around. But I'm just kind of Mary's version of folding, and I'm just going to stir it in gently. And that's just how I do it. And again, you don't want to stir it too vigorously and get that flour awakened and then all those little glutens making your cake all chewy. You want the cake to be nice and fluffy and moist. Did you see I have this? It's shelf liner. I have this here again. I used it on my cutting board in an earlier video because it keeps stuff from scooting around. So when you're cutting stuff, because it can be a pretty big deal if your board scoots and your knife doesn't scoot the right way, and you could cut, be very badly hurt. So you want to be careful. Make sure that your cutting board doesn't move. This is a little less important, but it's still, I like it. And we're just putting this batter in a 9 by 13 pan. Okay, this is going to go in a 350 degree preheated oven for about 30 minutes, and then we'll be back. Now we're getting ready for the Tres Leches part. 12-ounce can of evaporated milk, 14-ounce can of sweetened condensed milk, and then 1/3 of a cup of half and half. If you don't have half and half, you can just use regular milk, but the half and half is just richer. All right, now this is the easiest part of the whole thing. This milk is just going to go right on top of this cake. Now pour it slowly over the cake so that you make sure that you fill in all those holes, because you really want this cake, you really want this milk to soak into this cake. You don't want it all around the edges, but you do want some around the edges too, but you don't want it all around the edges. Now this needs to go in the refrigerator for 3 to 4 hours. I'm going to cover it up so that none of your other flavors that are in your refrigerator, like onions or salsa or anything, will soak into the cake. When it's soaked for a little while, then we're going to be back. 3 hours is about, that's what I have on my recipe. So 3 hours is good, but if you can do it longer, if you could do it overnight, even better. I wish I would have made this last night, but I just didn't feel like it. And you know, nobody's the boss of me, so. Anyway, we'll be back when the cake is all soaked with milk. Okay, now it's time to make the whipped cream topping for our delicious Tres Leches cake. 1 cup of whipping cream, about a teaspoon of vanilla. We're gonna whip that up. Okay, now after I've been beating this on high for about a minute, I like to add in my sugar. I'm adding in 1/4 of a cup of powdered sugar, just regular old powdered sugar. Now we're gonna beat this to stiff peaks. If you don't want to do the whipped cream, you could do just non-dairy whipped topping. Non-dairy whipped topping is a lot more sturdy than whipped cream. I like using it. I don't use it in this, but there's nothing wrong with doing that. So. Just want it barely to the edge. When you're doing yours, you can do it all the way to the end if you want. I just want it barely to the edge so that you can see the cake there. You can make it pretty, make a little swirl. You can top with some shaved chocolate or even some cocoa powder. Just sprinkle some cocoa powder over the top. I'm bringing it just like this. You could also put some fresh fruit if you wanted to serve it with some fresh berries, some blackberries or some raspberries, or if you wanted to use some strawberries or even some pineapple, something like that would be delicious with this. Anyway, we're done. It's really good. Again, add whatever you want. It's wonderful like this. But if you want to add some fruit, maybe feel a little less guilty about eating it, just a sliced banana even. Do that. And I just want to thank you for watching. I do appreciate you. If you haven't subscribed yet, if you'd consider doing that, I'd appreciate it. I will see you next time. Thank you so much for watching, and take care now.